Friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined by my co-host with the code,
Alex Dandino.
In all things, I don't even know the codes, but it sounds cool when you start sentences like that. All right, before we get to today's special episode, a little bit of business. Guys, if you could take a quick couple seconds right now, this second, leave us a 5-star rating and a review of the show wherever you listen to this podcast, especially if that be Apple Podcast app. 5 stars, a couple sentences, helps us defeat the algorithmic overlords, bring some more people into the show to join the fun. We appreciate all of you who have been doing that. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Film Alchemist, for video versions of these podcasts and some other cool stuff that we'll be working on bringing you throughout this year. So, Film Alchemist on YouTube. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, and find us on all the social media sites that you're on. It's a great way to get a hold of us. Just chat about movies, man. Let us know things you'd like to hear on the show, new, old, theme for a month, double feature, guest host, whatever it may be. We would love to hear about that. So all your social medias, and again, the email address, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. So thank you guys who have been reaching out there, too. We've gotten some really cool emails lately, and we appreciate all of you who've been doing that. All right. Today, Tuesday, this is for guest special movies, new movies. Criterion Channel just dropped a movie that I absolutely adore. And Alex and I thought this would be a great time to discuss the hidden gem, Ghost Dog. It's time to Ghost Dog, right? The Way of the Samurai, a Jim Jarmusch film. Again, this just came onto the Criterion Channel recently. So, great time to check this film out. Alex, had you seen Ghost Dog, and what are your initial thoughts on the film?
Oh, yes. I saw Ghost Dog in high school. The first time I saw it was in high school. I went through that. It was right before I went to college, and I had that period of time. I don't know if anybody else did this, but like when you're going to go to film school or whatever you're going to do, I was like, man, there's a bunch of movies that are just like holes in my collective movie knowledge, and Ghost Dog was one of them. So I watched Ghost Dog. I watched it again a few more times after that, of course. It's just a great movie. Like, I think the thing is, everybody always wants to say that it's sort of this. I don't think anyone's ever blatantly called it a ripoff, which is great because it's not. It's its own movie altogether. Because everyone always references Le Samurai, which is this French film with a very similar premise, mainly in just like Ghost Dog's character is very similar to this other character who's a French guy who, surprise, surprise, also lives by the code of the samurai and is an assassin. But to me,
there are a lot of guys that live by the code of the samurai, first off.
There are. To me, the thing that makes this movie special and makes it particularly worth watching is just the Jim Jarmusch of it all. This movie could be like the worst version of itself, which is just like this like horribly hokey, because it came out in 99. 99 was a great time to make like movies that seemed deep and then were not almost immediately. Jim Jarmusch has never made a movie like that, but I think the thing that makes this movie so special is that the Jim Jarmusch of it all is very meditative, very, very quiet, and that's the kind of movie he's always made. So for him to pick essentially like a hitman who follows a code to be the main character of his movie, and let alone let it be Forrest Whitaker, is really fascinating and makes the movie all the more captivating.
Yeah, see, you praise the Jim Jarmusch of it all. For me, it was the Forrest Whitaker of it all. I forget where I think it might have even been the William Friedkin documentary, Leap of Faith, where he talked about the best thing you'll ever be able to put on camera is just someone's face, right? It's the most expressive landscape that we'll ever be able to reach an audience and move them and this and that. And I was just struck by how captivating Forrest Whitaker is in every single frame of this movie. Because especially there's a lot of the Jim Jarmusch of it gets in with, like, there's a lot of these, it's the Irishman, right, of its time, where it's like, we have to commute, and you're going to sit through all of this, right? Get your white gloves on and turn your stereo to 21 because we're commuting with Forrest Whitaker for, like, what feels like 5-minute stretches. I'm sure it's only like a minute, but it feels like these long fucking stretches of just Forrest Whitaker driving somewhere, staring out at the city and the landscapes as they pass and the different people he passes, and, you know, just kind of, but that mixture of Jarmusch and Forrest Whitaker in those moments really work in a way that I feel like a lot of other people wouldn't have pulled off.
Well, and I think that goes to the credit of just the two. So, like, Jim Jarmusch has said that if Forrest Whitaker hadn't done the movie, he probably wouldn't have even made it. Like, this role was written for Forrest Whitaker, which makes sense because I'm not sure there's many other actors I'm willing to watch for 37 minutes before they utter a single word on camera and, like, be completely captivated the entire time. Like, my wife watched it with me, and, you know, Andrea's taken to watching a lot of these movies with me now, and, like, she was also just like, oh my God, he hasn't spoken the entire time, has he? I'm like, no. But we're, like, locked in with Forrest Whitaker because he is just, he's a captivating actor in and of himself, but, like, he's captivating particularly as Ghost Dog because there is mystery upon mystery. Even when you know the general ethos of where this guy came from, like, you just still need to know more. And you're not going to get it. It's masterful. It's amazing.
Yeah, as Tony Soprano said, the strong, quiet type, right? And it is there,
you know, the Gary Cooper type.
Yeah, I mean, he's just great in this movie because it's this front of strength, but I think that's kind of the thing that Forrest brought to it is that you look at him and there is a huggableness, right? So even though this guy is a straight up killer, because I wrote in my notes, I was like, this is my happy place. Like, I would watch this movie for 10 hours. It's just him on the bench talking about books with that little girl, right? When they both have their cases and they're talking about what books they've read and they've, they're sharing the stories, this and that. And he passes her the Rashomon. And I was like, this moment right here is what really sells this movie a lot for me, is that despite how bad Forrest is in this, I mean, they said he's committed, 12 contracts, and, you know, you see him, he's very handy at creating silencers, and by the end of the film, you're like, this guy's a fucking murder machine. But that's not the thing that's present, right? A lot of guys would play, like, this feels like a Jason Statham movie nowadays, right? Where he just, like, doesn't talk and just, like, look at my 5 o'clock shadow.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. Like, in the hands of a different director, a different actor, like, this movie becomes The Transporter because...
Which is a fine movie of its own.
All right, so it's a guy... No, like, it has its own merits, but, like, this is very different because it feels like a very different movie, specifically because you have Forrest Whitaker doing Jim Jarmusch, and, like, there's the scene for me that always is, like, the captivator, like, the one that encapsulates the entire movie and explains everything you need to know about Ghost Dog is the first time that he takes Pearline to meet Raymond. The whole bit about the bear, I'm like, there it is right there. Like, you need to know nothing else. If you watched that scene and knew nothing else about this movie other than, like, Ghost Dog's an assassin, and you watched Raymond explain what bears are, that's literally all you need to know. Like, that to me is... And it's interesting because also he's doing it in French. And again,
he's explaining it to us and not to them. Yeah.
Isaac DeBanco is also just, like, so good in like, everybody is good in this movie. I mean, other than, like, I'll be honest, like, most of the Italian guys are just, like, guys I've seen in every other movie. Like, half of them were in Casino.
I know. I was like, they got the fat blabbermouth from Kansas City. They got all.
Yeah, I was gonna say they got the fucking Kansas City guys. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. Like, that fucking guy. They got that guy and the guy with, like, the raspy voice who talks like this.
I mean, I love the Italians in this movie too. This whole movie feels very authentic to me, to where they are, right? But again, I think that bear scene's a great example, because that is Ghost Dog's best friend is just another person he can exist around. They play chess and eat ice cream, right? And he brings this little girl in, Because she was saying, my mom says, you live on the roof, you're a creep, you have no friends. He's like, that's just not true, you know? Like, I got this guy. Like, that's some kind of defense, right? But the line that stuck out with me, right? Because they do these interludes where they cut to the pages from The Way of the Samurai, right? These kind of life bits, you know, or, you know, metaphors for life. But the one is when he talks about when he goes to kill the mob boss who loves Public Enemy. And he's talking about the rainstorm, right? Like, the rainstorm's going to come. And he's like, you can lose your shit and be the person that runs around and you jump under eaves of houses and this and that. And he's like, the difference is between a normal person and a samurai is that the samurai just embraces it for what it is. And he's like, either way, you get the same soaking, right? That was kind of the lesson of the parable, is that you get the same soaking. And once you learn to accept that in that headspace, you see all things in that way. That to me was the moment where I was like, that's what the movie does really well for me, right? Is that because the thing is you start seeing these quotes, and as they come up, you're like, the samurai code, it's so like, we just don't live like this anymore, right? But I think that's why we're drawn to movies like this. The idea of a man who's so committed to something, anything, right? I think what it does is we feel like it's very limiting. But what I think it is these guys are these people, this lost art of really giving yourself to something, right? I think it actually frees you up so much more because you just have your go-tos. Like he says, right? Always make your decisions within 7 breaths. And I was like, well, you can do that when everything you do is a fucking postcard of, you know, code on your wall. And so I think that just, this is the code. This is how I live. I think that's just such a weird counterintuitive way to how we work now that it becomes captivating to watch rather than limiting. What did you take on that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when we've talked about this before, to me, when like text intersects the movie like that, it rarely captivates me the way it does in this movie. Like, to me, I'm just like, you're now just biding times. You have to frame up your story so that I know what you're trying to intend going forward. Like, what I like about Ghost Dog is there's never a time where I don't know where the movie's going. So the excerpts of dialogue that come from, I'm not sure what the, I don't know, is it Haragure or Haragure or I don't know how to say it. Either way, the book that is The Way of the Samurai, every time these passages come on screen, it does nothing but enrich the story, actually. Yeah. Because it's not telling you, like, all right, cool, we're finished with that part. Now we have to explain to you really quickly without telling you what's about to happen. You're like, great, I don't need to know any of this. What it is telling you the mood. It's explaining to you where Ghost Dog's head is at without having to explain anything and knowing exactly where this is going. Because we all know how it's going to go. There's nothing about this movie that, to me, was, like, shocking or surprising. There was nothing, like, and again, like, I've seen it a bunch, but even the first time I remember watching it and being like, this is pretty much like a straightforward, like, hit gone bad. People are, like, trying to cover their tracks, and the only honorable guy is the one who actually killed people. Like, that is sort of like the weird, sort of the weird thing about it is, like, I spend the entire movie rooting for Ghost Dog, and that's, like, you shouldn't. He's the guy who murdered people in the beginning of this movie. And you're like, I hope that guy murders all these guys. My God. Like, it's the power of the story itself. And it's the power of those passages is it's reframing the character so that you're like, wow, this man does carry himself with great honor. And I think that's the thing that you latch onto is everyone else acts dishonorably. Even Louis. Everybody else acts with great dishonor. He's the only one who follows an actual code, and I think that's the thing I like the most.
He follows a code. It's not necessarily honorable, right? One of the thing about the framing device, right, is
There's
Jarmusch
honor
usually
in following the code.
Well, I mean, sure, but what if your code is like I'm not even going to say those. Whatever the fuck, you have a bad code, right? You can have
whatever
bad code.
You're about to say is a horrible example because I know where you're going with it.
Okay, well, I didn't say it, so I just followed my own code. I don't say the things that I think out loud. That's my code now. But so
first time to follow a code for everyone.
How dare you? Code's off. Code's off for the rest of the show. Code's off. No. So we're sitting there, and it's the Jim Jarmusch, right? The fade to black. which to me is one of the super annoying Jim Jarmusch trademarks, right? Because it just immediately stops me and you're like, oh, now I'm out. It's like fucking rope-a-doping me around. I hate the fade to black between every scene, right? This one is different, though, and I agree with you. It shouldn't work. But what I like about it is it's telling you why Ghost Dog is doing things, but it doesn't feel invasive, right? It doesn't feel lazy or cheating, right? Like, there is the one moment where, and this is near the end, right? When we kind of see, because a lot of this movie is seeing the urban decay and this and that, and just the surroundings of Ghost Dog and where he's at. In the one where he talks about, you know, there are a lot of people that want to go back 100 years, right? This is impossible. You can't do that. So what you need to do is make the best out of every generation. And to us, that reads as Ghost Dog saying, I need to do the best with the time I have, right? But what it really is it's in that moment, it becomes a really interesting take on, you know, this kind of African-American urban decay story. Right? And it stopped trying to go. This is, I think, probably pretty close to after he finds the deer hunters and just ran, or the bear hunters. Yeah. They actually had killed a bear, right? And he just jumps out and they just start with kind of the not very subtle racism. Next thing you know, they get got. And he's, you know, there are ancient ways. And the guy's like, this ain't no ancient civilization, feller. And he goes, it is today. Boom, gets him, right? And next thing you know, we're talking about don't waste generations, right? And this, you know, it has this nice subtle interplay, right? So it feels like it's telling us Ghost Dog's motivations and it's kind of cheating the show don't tell. I think you hit it really close to how it felt for me, as it was just adding, to me it played more like the soundtrack, right? Like it's just bringing out these little bits of extra emotion and saturation of my mind in the story. Because they even start on a really weird one, right? Which is a samurai every day must imagine that he's dead, right? Or the essence of a samurai is imagining all these death scenarios, right? Imagine yourself falling off a mountain. Imagine yourself getting hit with a hail of arrows. You know, and in this, a samurai must always consider himself dead, that kind of thing. That's a really strange place to start a movie. To tell us that here's this guy who just every day spends all of his time thinking about being dead. And you're like, okay, he's kind of a hitman samurai who always thinks of himself as dead. But then the movie goes on and we see this shockingly rich life that he seems to have cultivated for himself. And I think that's what it does, right? Is it doesn't feel, it's not really the cheating that it seems to be on the surface.
Right. Well, it's the cheat that anybody else, again, in the hands of lesser filmmakers or the hands of lesser actors, it's the cheat you would use to avoid having to do what these guys do so well in this movie, which is give a character pathos without having to, like, you know, Forrest Whitaker doesn't say a word until 37 minutes into the movie. And the first thing he does is start talking about books he likes to read. Asking a dog to go away. Like, those are little things in this movie. All of these little moments are also revealing about what it is, because Ghost Dog isn't this, like, we think he's scary. For half an hour of the movie, we think he's, oh man, this guy doesn't talk to anybody. He's terrifying. He just sits there and observes the world and feeds his pigeons, and that's his life. And he kills people. Oh my God. And then we go to the park, and he's just sitting there, and he has a very pleasant conversation. He's not this he's not some bloodthirsty animal. What he is simply a man who follows a certain way to live. Like, to me, it's less about the samurai. Like, to me, like samurai, like the quote you're bringing up about, I can't remember. I do not remember exactly how it goes, but basically that a samurai must live to me, more interpreting like a samurai must live every day, assuming it will be his last. Not necessarily imagining his scenarios of death constantly, but assuming death lurks around the corner. Death waits for no man. So to me, Ghost Dog living his life like that, that's why we have these really wonderful moments where he's interacting with like Raymond and Perline and even Louis to some extent, lesser because he ends up having to chase Louis for most of the movie. But like the Perline and Raymond scenes are so great because it's the tapestry he's woven for his life, which is, yes, like death lurks around the corner. Like he is a merchant of death. He will eventually meet his end at the hands of God knows what. But in the meantime, taking in the simple things like a scoop of ice cream and a chess game with your friend, that's what makes things worth living for the moment that he's in. And that's why I think that's why that ending, we'll get to that, but that's why that ending's so great to me.
Well, also we see in flashback, right, the death of Ghost Dog, or whoever Ghost Dog was before, right? This kid who found himself on the wrong end. Again, like maybe the generational wasted motif they were talking about. But these guys were beating him, if not ready to kill him, right? They did whip out a gun, and Louis killed this kid. And in that moment, whoever Ghost Dog was gone. And then he dedicated him. I think they said 3 years later he tracked down Louis and was like, now I'm your retainer. I send a pigeon every day to your house. You pay me on the first day of autumn. So somewhere in that time of being the kid who was out at the other end of the barrel, right? He found this book and found this way of life. So even though he was saved, he sees that as a metaphoric death and creates himself as this character that, again, believes in the end we all get the same soaking. So what's the merit of how I walk through the world? And I think that's what is beautiful.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because in response to that, I guess not in response to that, I'm actually just segueing into something else completely. But I wanted, but you brought up the birth of Ghost Dog, that scene, and there's two different versions of it. Do you think Ghost Dog remembers it the way it happened, or do you think Louis is the one? Like, why would Louis make it up? That's the question.
I don't think Louis makes it up, but I would imagine Louis' truth, because this gets back to the Rashomon thing, right? I would imagine that
this is a straight up takeoff Rashomon.
Right. I mean, both of their truths are going to be a little more heroic than it probably was in the Beat, right? That Ghost Dog probably, because this man followed him for 3 years, declared his loyalty, made him his retainer, I'm sure that there's a part of Louis that has beefed this up in his mind a little bit, right? That he's better than he was.
Right.
And I'm sure to Ghost Dog, he definitely believes that. So, yeah, I mean, I think we all do that. In every story that anyone tells me, I assume there's probably at least like 40% fluff and embellishment, because that's just who we are as a people.
Way more.
That's just what we do, right?
There's a 60-40.
And by the 10th time you're telling a story, now you know what part hit. You know, oh, this didn't get a reaction, so I'm going to add another detail here.
Right.
And make it, and especially for Ghost Dog, whose entire life is crafting this character, right? Because you see him walk through, and he's respected by all, right? Everyone's like, hey, what's up, Ghost Dog? They even show, you know, the blue gang and the red gang. I don't know if that was a Crips and Blood play, but he seems to be respected by all in his vicinity. Because I think they all recognize here's a guy who's just doing something. He's trying to be better, you know, for right or wrong, and maybe, you know, you could argue if he is good or not by the end of the film. But they respect that, right? So, yeah, I mean, I would assume the incident with Louis, that's probably a greatly exaggerated story. And I would imagine that they both are, if I'm being honest.
Right. I mean, yeah, I always, I feel like maybe, because in one, the guy points the gun at Ghost Dog, and in the other, he points the gun at Louis. I'm trying to, and that was always my thing, is like, I was always trying to figure out if someone wants to be the hero of their own, because Ghost Dog is not the hero in his story. Ghost Dog's hero is Louis in that story. And Louis is the hero of his own story because he killed the guy anyways. So I've always assumed Ghost Dogs was the truer one because he was the one in trouble.
But he was also probably fucking concussed and bloody-eyed, right? So let me ask you this. Does it matter if the gun was pointed at Ghost Dog versus Louis Moore?
I mean, I'd say it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter either way because Ghost Dog was essentially about to get murdered either by being beaten to death or
to me,
by being shot.
The fact that he just points a gun, period, right? That the criminal, the extra from the town points the gun, right? That lets you know that death was an option. So I think then by just painting the picture of where the gun is, you're just trying to shift a little bit the morals of it, right? That Louis not just another guy with a gun, right? That now it becomes this, honor amongst thieves. Good, because I think that's one of the things you see, especially with the mobsters. They like to, because that's one of the confusing things in the movie, right? This hit is ordered on Handsome Larry. That doesn't sound like an Italian mobster name, but whoever.
Handsome Frank.
Handsome Frank. That sounds better. Handsome Frank. But so the hit is ordered on Handsome Frank. The guy's daughter is supposed to be out of the picture, so they put her on a bus rather than just put her in that castle. She happens to be there when the hit goes down, and they're like, now because of that, Ghost Dog's got to go, right? So it's confusing as to why this all has to happen, this and that. But I think it gets back to it's one of those, they're crafting their own narrative, right? That Blood Dog, Ghost Dog is Blood Dog. He's this thing that he's not. That now they have a moral high ground, even though they're involved in something criminal themselves. So I think a lot of the movie is, because you were saying, like, Ghost Dog might be the only honorable person. I don't know that I would say that Ghost Dog is honorable. What we at least see is that Ghost Dog has set the boundaries. Or he's at least set the flag post or the lighthouse, whatever, visual metaphor you want to use.
I'm not saying I've never thought Ghost Dog has the moral high ground, but I think he's definitely one of the people he's one of the only characters in the movie who is doing the thing that he believes is correct.
Well, you at least get the sense that he's doing it. He's at least thought about why he's doing it, whereas the mobsters always feel like they're just, what's the lie I need to tell right now to get through with it, right? Like we see when they shoot the guy who's just kind of like the chubbier old guy. And he's like, hey, what are you guys doing? And they just shoot him, and they're like, well, he kind of looks like him. He was a black guy with pigeons. And they're like, he said to shoot him. This isn't on us. That's on him for just, being a black guy with pigeons. So you hear them constantly just telling these lies to get past their behavior, which they clearly don't feel bad for at all. And so I think that's the difference, is that Ghost Dog at least seems thoughtful, right? We see him take a chance when he doesn't shoot the lady, right? He just steals her book, Rashomon. We're just going to pass over that crime, right? Oh, my God. How much are late fees on that, Ghost Dog? But neither here nor there. He's a book criminal. It
wasn't a library book.
That's still public property that he thefted. Stole is the word, not thefted.
That's her property. It's not public property. It's her property.
Well, that's even worse. Everyone steals from the library. It's called renting, Alex. Ghost Dog just straight up steals. He's a biblio thief, and I cannot abide.
Whoa! It wasn't a library book.
I know. I'm saying that makes it worse. That makes it worse.
Because he stole it from some girl.
Oh, now she's just some girl to you. See how you're already bringing her down. The victim is being blamed.
Stole it from some girl, and then gifted it to a child. Yeah, it's a real monster. Pff, this guy, I tell you.
Let's pretend Robin Hood is not a criminal. Let's pretend that Robin Hood's not a criminal first. I don't care about him redistributing the book wealth. I'm just saying. I knew he wasn't an all the way good guy because he stole the book. I'm just saying. That's how I knew something was wrong. Something was afoot. But in that moment, he did choose the lesser crime. He did not kill her. And he says to Louis, I wasn't contracted to kill no lady.
I was not told to kill. Yes.
He also wasn't contracted to be a book thief, but I guess we'll just turn a blind eye to that crime. Oh, yeah, just because there's no chapter on as the sun rises, don't steal the pages with writing on them. We'll just let him run around being a book thief. That's fine.
Yes, that's a much less heinous crime than murder. So,
it's funny that he kills
Ghost Dog chose in that moment. If Ghost Dog chose in that moment in the movie to become a book thief forever, I'd be like, that's a fine move. Good for him. A new vocation.
I shit you not, though. This really bothered me in the movie. When he stole the book, and then at the end, she gets the book back, right? but it's bloody and it's
Yeah.
stained, it actually irked me. I was like, oh, couldn't even take care of the book. Even though it's like his blood, it legitimately
He took care of the
bothered
book
me.
fine. He gave it to the girl to read, and then he got shot to death. It's different.
It bothered me. I don't know why. I'm not saying it's right, but I cared more about that book than any other human being. Like, once Ghost Dog was out of the way, you're like, now I'm sad that they ruined that book. Also, I was like, why did you take the book back from the girl? Leave it with her. You know you're leaving all your possessions behind. But now, no, he had to stain a good book. That's crime number 2. And the 28 murders we see. And the theft of cars and clothes. But the book one is really the crime that bothered me the most. I don't know why. You're not with me on this. You're just pro book stealing. That's fine. I know who
In the
can't come
context
over to
of this
my
movie,
house.
yes.
Ghost Alex. You can't come to my house anymore.
Excuse me, I've always returned your books. Thank you very much.
Now I'm starting to wonder. I'm going to check them for bloodstains.
In fact, we've talked about this. I know the people who haven't returned books to you, and those people literally were not invited back to your house.
Yeah, no, I like have a list. If I ever become Ghost Octopus, which would be my samurai name, I know exactly who I'm going after first, and it's bibliothieves. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just derailing our whole fucking conversation to scream about book stealing. But it is one of those
about a guy stealing a book after murdering someone.
Right, but I didn't care about Handsome Frank. I take the theft of books very seriously. It's one of those weird... I told you this story, right? I was showing my friend Pulp Fiction. It was another one of those college things where you're like, you got to see this movie. This is a groundbreaking movie, right? At the time I saw it, I was like, this is the best movie ever made. And I showed it to my friend. He's sitting there. He's huffing and puffing. I'm like, this non-fucking film school pleb doesn't understand this movie. And I was getting ready to fight with him. So as the movie ends, I'm like, what's your fucking problem? I heard you huffing and puffing over there the whole movie. And he's like, that doesn't bother you at all. And I was like, what? And he's like, Uma Thurman's haircut, completely uneven. And I was just like, what? And it was the thing. From the moment he saw Uma Thurman, he could not concentrate on the rest of the movie because he couldn't figure out why her haircut was uneven. It's strange, but sometimes there's just little details in movies that derail people.
Doesn't she throw the book? She doesn't drop it. She throws it.
Well, I'm sure she drops it because she's fucking scared that Handsome Frank got gunned down.
No, that's not the sequence of events. She threw the book, and then Handsome Frank looks down and then looks up. That's how we see the ghost dogs in the house.
Wait, are you insinuating she threw the book at Ghost Dog so it's self-defense theft?
That's not what I'm insinuating. What I'm insinuating is that she clearly didn't care for the book at all, so it went to a better owner.
I think the moment you see your side piece get blown the fuck away in your room of amour, it's safe to assume that you can drop the book and it's still yours to own.
That's not the sequence of events that happened. She threw the book first. Then the camera pans up to reveal Ghost Dog, and then Handsome Frank looks over. He's like, "What's your problem?" Oh my God. He gets seppuku'd, and then
as she's listening to him on the phone talking about how he knows he's about to get whacked. Okay, so now this is the state's defense, is that she was in no state to be a mother to that book.
Yes, I agree. She already threw the book once. He was giving it to a good home.
I'm going to try to shift us away from the book for the love of God, because I could do this for another hour. Arguing about books' rights is my...
I don't know how. I just proved you wrong.
Well, that's clearly not true. The tapes will show it both. Shut up. All right, so Handsome Frank brings up a really cool thing I want to get to.
Boy.
Which is, I love the deaths in this movie. The close-up deaths. Let me rephrase that, right? Because I feel like we get about 20 Italians that get shot from afar and just go, ugh, and do like their version of a pratfall, right? But probably the two that most stick out in my head, and Ghost Dogs, right? The three big ones to me. The just leathery, ballsack-faced Italian mafia boss. And Handsome Frank, right?
Oh, yeah.
I love how they all get shot, and they still kind of remain very calm, still, and stoic for a moment. Right? Even if there's blood pops and it's kind of brutal in that regard. The bodies themselves remain a moment of calm and cool before they go. What did you make of this? I thought that was super cool.
I mean, to me, it's it's what Ghost Dog talks about in the beginning of the movie. It's the acceptance of death. It's the knowledge that death is happening. Like even Ghost Dog himself at the end of the movie, he gets popped 4 times and he's still calm, walks, barely falls. It's a very simple thing. Like I think that is, if you know your number's up or that your number could be up at any time, you aren't surprised when it happens. I think that's the thing that's great about those 2 deaths particularly. Like the leathery faced Italian guy who's hanging out with, who's like doing dance moves to, oh God, watching old Italian guys dance is just like, whew, especially to Public Enemy, brutal.
No, how dare you? No, not the Public Enemy death. The guy who gets up and buttons his jacket, right? The head mob boss.
Oh, Henry Silva. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that one, too, is just like, because that one, again, is just super stoked because he's like, I've been waiting for you. It's like, okay, so you knew this was going to happen. And like, there's no, because this is the other thing I like about the movie is it subverts that assumption that there's going to be some standoff. I love that there's not.
Yeah.
I love that it's not a matter of like, well, I have to say the thing I was going to say. Like he has nothing Ghost Dog has nothing badass to say. Ghost Dog just killed like 20 guys in a room.
Yeah, well also his samurai advice was, in all things I run in head first without thought. And I was like, that seems like a bad plan. And then it just works. He just wastes.
That seems pretty foolhardy, but
yeah, he wastes 10 overweight Italians, and then he has the showdown with the boss, and he's just like, let me get fancier. Buttons the jacket and just because you sit there and you're like, he even said when he says, I was expecting you. I think what you're saying is pretty on point, right? I thought that meant, aha, I've laid a trap for you. But not at all, man. Right. That was just because they even led me down that path too, right? Because Ghost Dog's sitting there with his high-powered rifle, and when the bird lands on his sight, right, and blocks the shot, I was like, oh, man, this is going to get bad. Like when he's like, I rush in, right? So they're leading me down this path of, the fates are moving him into something more dramatic. And it's just so matter of fact. Right. The guys, I've been expecting you. Pop, pop, pop. Done. That's it. Yeah. And I was like, I think that gets to the coolness of we all get the same soaking, right? I keep coming back to that card because that's the one that I took from this movie, right? Is that whether you were the young black guy who was beaten and then saved and transformed yourself into this killer, or you're a fancy-suited Italian guy or handsome Frank or whoever the fuck, you're still going to get it, man. What is the value of the journey on the way? And I think maybe that's why we spend so much time commuting with Ghost Dog. And especially the fact that when we commute, he has like special white gloves for his fucking Volume 21 CDs, right? Like he doesn't have a computer, but somehow Ghost Dog is making mad mixtapes, right? And dropping them in because that quality of the journey of him traveling through and seeing all these other people meandering around without codes. So I think maybe that was... The deaths were cool. Before we get to the ending, there were 2 other things I wanted to clear up. What in the fuck did you make of the cartoon watching?
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up because I said that during the movie. I was like, why are they watching cartoons? Like my wife said, she's like, well, maybe that's all they could afford as far as like stuff to put on the TV. I'm like, no, there's a reason for that because like they have the fucking Simpsons on there. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the last one was like, what was that? Itchy and Scratchy's what
the last 2 are these Itchy and Scratchy bits, and then so my wife we were watching it, and then we got the Itchy and Scratchy thing, the second one, and she's like, "Oh, it's the movie." I'm like, "What?" And I was watching it, and I thought about, I didn't get to go back and watch all of them, but I was rewatching the cartoons, and I think it's interesting because the cartoons are essentially telegraphing the events that are about to occur, which is cool.
Oh wow!
And like really interesting, and an interesting way. Like like the last one, the Itchy and Scratchy one, is the gun continuously getting bigger, and finally they just like blow each other off the planet. Yeah, I mean, it essentially sort of forecasts what's going to happen anyways, but like it's one of the it was interesting. I was trying to figure out what the cartoons were because they're playing on like old TVs. This is like it's 1999. I'm just like, is that a fucking tube Marantz? I can't see a fucking thing. Jeez. But like I was trying to figure out what the cartoons like because she's watching cartoon. I can't remember what the cartoon is that she's watching when Ghost Dog enters the mansion to kill Henry Silva.
Handsome Frank was watching Betty Boop, I think, in one of them.
Yeah.
So
Handsome Frank's watching Betty Boop in the very beginning. So I don't know. I gotta go back and rewatch those cartoons specifically because I feel like they are.
It just
meant
feels
to
out of
forecast
place.
The plot a little bit.
It feels wrong, right? You're like, why are these hard people watching this? And I was like, is this to get reinforced the lies they're telling to create their own characters, right? That they see everything in these because cartoons are always very simplistic morality tales, right? As you get older, you might find some subversion in Looney Tunes and this and that, right? Which, we all know, Betty Boop especially. But for the most part, these are stories told so that kids know that's the bad guy, that's the good guy, right? And the yucks ensue.
Right.
And so I was like, maybe that's why they're all watching it, is because that's how they're living their life, is this cartoonish version of good and bad.
That could work too, yeah.
Because aesthetically, it just didn't fit to me. I was like, why is this here?
I agree. It was just like a really weird...
Just a weird choice.
At first, I was just like, is this just a weird like indie movie thing? Like, we're just going to watch cartoons at some point? Like, oh, we're adults, but we watch cartoons.
Once you're on your 20th frame, like your 20th clip of cartoons, I'm like, you really want to say something, and I still have no fucking idea what.
Right. Yeah.
It was the same thing with like the Ghost Dog driving, and it's like the McConaughey commercial like montages. And the doves flying, I'm like, are the pigeons? I'm like, all right, I'll settle on the pigeons are like death, right? A spirit flying. So we open on a pigeon.
Right.
That could be Ghost Dog getting the contract, that very opening pigeon. I was like, oh, that's fucking cool, right? So every time we see a pigeon flying, that's someone's soul's about to elevate above this hard world we're in. Fine. The cartoons, I was like, I got fucking nothing. And the other one, I was like, I don't know if I still have anything. And this is one of those kind of... The 90s indie movies were really fascinating to me. Because, again, like, right in the middle of Ghost Dog, as we're doing this hit parade of the mafia, we stop and just murder two racist and do a America is sometimes too ancient, they killed a bear, I'll kill you thing. We do these, like, flashcards. We do the cartoon. Like... 90s indie movies were just like, we're just sitting and meditating, y'all, on whatever we want. And it was cool. And this movie does it pretty well, as good as most of them I ever saw. But the pit bull, I don't know that I feel like I understand the point of that dog in the film, because I feel like he shows up at two crucial moments, and he's supposed to matter and be symbolic of... And so I figured we'd wrestle with this one for a minute.
All right.
So first time he sees him.
I mean, to me...
First time he sees him, right? Dog's eyeballing the shit out of him as he's eating ice cream as the girl approaches, right? Second time is near the end of the film. He sees him alone in the alley.
Right.
Is that a ghost dog? No, because the girl could see him. I was like, oh my God, he's the ghost dog. But that's clearly not the case.
Stupid.
Unless he got killed between that ice cream scene and that alley scene. And then I was like, he doesn't like dogs. He likes birds. His kink is falling asleep with a book on his belly surrounded by birdseed, which that and the book thieving really left an ill taste in my mouth. But what do you make of the dog? There has to be something.
All right. Let me see if I can make this work. The black dog in some circles is considered a sign of death. So when we first see the dog show up and won't leave Ghost Dog alone, the little Perline says, tell him to go. And he says, go on. And the dog, without hesitation, runs off.
Yeah. So you do think it's a spiritual
Second
dog?
I think there's a spiritual connection. I don't think it's a ghost dog. Like,
Do you think
it's not,
Perline is
like,
actually
a dog.
death, and she's like, I'm going to kill this guy to steal his ill-gotten books? No. All right, we'll throw that
No,
theory
I do
out.
not think Perline is dead.
We'll throw that theory out.
We'll throw that one like that girl threw the Rashomon book. Just useless.
How dare you? Objection, Your Honor.
But then the second time is right before he's taken down. So, I mean, to me, it's the symbol of death. And it's the beginning. It's Ghost Dog says, no, not now. Go away. Go on.
Right.
And the second time, he simply stares at the dog, knowing. He knows it's coming.
Okay, so I wrote it in my notes. This is
that's my
right after
interpretation.
they shoot the lady cop, and he just killed the bear racist, the bear fuckers, right?
Yeah.
So in that moment, that's right before he goes and does the awesome 2 Rainy House murders. So he's kind of kicking it up a notch. I don't know why the dog drops in there or what that could mean. Maybe, like you're saying, it's just a harbinger of what's to come. I feel like they could have used a pigeon for that because he's a weird put seed on himself and falls asleep guy. I was hoping for... I thought maybe... Because I had a rescue pit bull that I just found on the streets like that, right? That maybe in a way that was reminding Ghost Dog of what he was. Just kind of a lovable creature that has more to offer that was kind of left out to be squandered, right? Just waiting for someone. Like, he wanted to be Ghost Dog's retainer in a way, right? He's like, take me up to your cool roof, man. We'll be best friends. No, fuck you. I was like... Also, yeah, 3rd strike for Ghost Dog being a good guy. He doesn't like an actual dog. Strike 3. But yeah, so I don't know. The dog in the cartoons I never all the way settled on, right? Maybe the Ghost Dog is just like this reflective moment of because I have a code, I am higher than just. But this isn't like a weird predatory monster dog. This is like a really kind of cool, insightful dog. So yeah, I didn't all the way settle on that one.
No, I would say it's. I mean, to me, it's just it's a harbinger or some sort of vessel for
I like that.
The inevitability of Ghost Dog's life.
Yeah,
on the way down.
They should do a second movie where it's him and that dog is voiced by Dennis Quaid from that movie my mom always talks about. They just run around and be best friends.
Jesus Christ.
No, they're fighting dogs. And Dennis Quaid is with the bear fucker family. That's neither here nor there. Oh, man. Yeah, so I got to give quick shout-outs to the rain kill. Him shooting the guy through the pipe, that's an all-time kill.
Awesome.
That is not at all what I expected he was doing. And it was such a fucking... Also, yeah, the old-timer guy just rapping Flava Flav in Public Enemy. Loved it. That was awesome. I love that fucking scene. Great. All right. Now to the ending. Now to our ending. Oh, another scene I like that we just kind of glossed over. I like the meditative indie movie thing of just watching a guy build a boat in the middle of downtown or wherever that was. I thought that was really cool. Just his buddy brings him up to talk about how cool a boat is, and Ghost Dog has no idea what the fuck he's saying. He just sees a boat and gets it, right? Floating away to a better life.
Right.
So, shouts out to that beat, too, while we're just doing that. Ending. Ghost Dog hears. Sling-it arm Italian man is here. He shot Louis twice, but he let him live. He keeps saying this thing, you're a retainer, I mean you no disrespect.
Right.
Why not, as he's there with his best friend, as he sees the little girl, right? Do you think for even a moment, because he clearly knows what's about to happen, right? Because he takes a gun that's not loaded. What is your thought on why Ghost Dog doesn't just pop Louis and be done with it?
It's not the code, man. That's why. It's as simple as that.
I thought, yeah, it would kind of defeat the entire point of Ghost Dog if at the end he turns on the code, right? Because what do they say? the most important thing in all things is to mind your master. Is that how it's phrased?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it functions a couple of different ways. So for one, it's a matter of honor. Like, you would not kill your master. Otherwise, if you are a masterless samurai, you are
Ronin.
What's the Ronin?
Yeah, wandering samurai.
And I don't think that's Ghost Dog's way. Ghost Dog doesn't wish to be a Ronin. He doesn't wish to be a wandering samurai. I think that emptying the clip is pretty important, because then on another level, without any bullets in his holster, they can't just assume that he was killed by. They have to, like, cops or anybody who shows up will have to assume he was killed for something completely different. So he's also protecting his master in that way.
The strange thing is that the gun's gone if and when the cops show up. So really what I think that moment...
Oh, yeah, because Perline takes it. Yeah. You're right. Sorry.
The gun unloading moment to me was very interesting, because I think that was him trying to give an emotional pass to his master, right, to Louis. So as long as he's wearing the gun, right, Louis won't feel as guilty for shooting. Whereas if he walks out with clearly no weapons and his hands up, I think he knows he's putting a hardship on Louis, who, again, is directly responsible for the creation of Ghost Dog, right? Not who he was before, but he would have just been dead, right? So he's just been here helping Louis out with his business. But that's the thing that I think is really fun about this scene, is that Ghost Dog seemingly has a quality of life that is worth killing Louis for. But it's because of this fucking weird code, right? And so to see that really put to the test. And another part of me is like, it's happening right here in front of his best friend and that little girl. That little girl is witnessing a man who she seemingly admires get gunned down. And what is that going to do to her? And so you're imagining that Ghost Dog is running all of this through his head, right? And as he's telling his friend, sometimes you got to follow the ancient ways. I know you understand me. Because I think on a basic level, everyone understands the man walking to his death, right, with honor. But the fact that he doesn't want to not get shot in front of that girl, or he's not like, hey, maybe I'll be her retainer, right? Like, I'll be here to make sure she's okay in this rough environment, right? This little girl with the books who has all this potential. I think it's because you were talking about this earlier, right? This is a movie where you pretty much know where this is going, right? The road is paved in one direction when it's a hit gone wrong movie. And you know, based on who Ghost Dog is, he can't give up the thing that makes him Ghost Dog, which is the samurai code. But fuck, man, if there was a part of me that thought he wasn't going to fight and just be with that kid. And it was gut-wrenching. It was absolutely the fucking worst to watch. It really made me fucking depressed.
I mean, yeah, you don't want to see... I think this is kind of the weird thing about Ghost Dog himself is, like I was saying, he's the only one who seems to operate with some semblance of honor. So, like...
Even after he's killed, like, 20 dudes.
Even after he's killed, like, 20 guys, he's, like... It's one of those things where you're sitting there and you're like, I don't want a good man to die. And I'm thinking that after he just killed a bunch of people on screen. Like, I don't want good people to die. Like, Ghost Dog is not a good guy. He literally murders people for a living. That's
and steals
not
books.
Admirable behavior.
God. And doesn't like dogs.
And rightfully takes books off the hands of lesser people.
Fucking shares his seeds with birds. What a gross. You know what? I love that ending. No, I'm just kidding. I'll tell you what it is, though. His saves the cat, since he won't save the lovable dog moment of this movie, is that, again, I think all of us on a basic level understand the difficulty of following a code, right? To be a truly honorable person, and for Ghost Dog to make that choice in that moment has to occur, right? Because we all know what it's like to be on a diet. I'm going to try to be better to my wife. I'm going to try to not yell at my kids. I'm going to try to... all these things that we know would make our lives better and the lives around us better, and we'd be better people. We all know what it's like to want to do that. and how fucking hard it is and how easy it is to give up, right? I'm not smoking anymore. I'm not drinking. So to see a man live this code, even if everything he does is bad, and a lot of his personal choices are beyond creepy, you still understand that he has this extra value, because if he can do that in our minds and hearts, as we look at Forrest Whitaker's face, right, as he fucking draws us in, we know that he could be capable of so much more, and especially he could be capable of something great, despite all of his past behavior. And I think that is why I honestly couldn't imagine this movie with anyone but Forrest Whitaker. It's such a perfect, and even in that moment when he's just kind of laughing, he's like, is this the big dramatic duel at high noon? And he's just kind of walking up to him, and even as he gets shot, he's not being dramatic about it. It's okay, right? Even as he's kind of seemingly telling Louis that what he's doing is nonsense, right? What, are you going to go pick up all the pieces? And Louis just says, not exactly, right? He's still just okay with that. The nonsense of it all, right? He's just getting his soaking now. It's just his turn. But you want it to not be. You want it to not be.
Again, that's the power of this movie. You want you want more Ghost Dog movies. You want them for the rest of your life. You want to know how many more books he can take off the hands of lesser beings.
If he became Lone Wolf and Cub or Zatoichi, you're like, I would have watched 15 Ghost Dog movies and loved it. But if he doesn't make this choice, Ghost Dog does not exist anymore.
Yeah. Agreed.
Now he's just creepy guy who steals books and lays with birds. And no one wants that.
I mean, this is why there needed to, if there was going to be a sequel where he survived, he would have just been a librarian.
He would have been killing Boban with books like John Wick. But yeah, I thought it was cool, man. And it actually uses the samurai wrap up in a really beautiful way, with the young girl reading in the kitchen, right? Because that scene is crazy too, because she picks up the gun and aims it at Louis. And when she pulls the trigger, no bullet comes out, but you see Louis stumble a bit. And I was like, oh my God, did she just mind bullet him? What is happening? But no, he kind of goes on. The daughter seemingly is now running the mob empire. And so despite what she's seen, we don't see this scene of weeping or insanity, whatever. We do see the ice cream man screaming in vain that the gun's not loaded, but he can't speak enough to save his friend, which is truly tragic. But she's just very calmly reading a book in the kitchen, right? Almost as if he's still there. And they talk about these lunchboxes they use on this flower day. And that when they're done, they just throw them on the ground to be trampled by feet, right? And that, I think the way they phrase it is, the end is important in all things. And I thought that was such a just powerful, poetic metaphor to end the movie on after what we just saw of Ghost Dog. That he was just thrown aside and trampled under feet, right? And in a way, and then it makes you wonder if that's how he wanted it to be, right? That what seems like a waste and a pitiful waste to him kind of matters, because he showed her and his friend that he stuck to the code. So it's a really fun, that's a really good wrap up for this movie, I thought.
I think so too. I mean, just it's a straightforward movie about a samurai, and I think that's the best way you can put it, is just it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well,
it's just a great meditation on all these things that it's a great meditation on all these things that I think are very familiar to us, but come in a very unconventional package of a hitman who works for a black hitman who works for the mob, who goes by the way of the samurai, that, in Nowheresville, East Coast place. They never specify where it is. I know it was shot in Jersey City, but they never specify where it actually is. But again, that's the value of the movie itself, is that it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The point is, it's the story of a samurai completing his journey. It's just great, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what it does is it just pulls away all of those things. And while it feels specific and authentic, what it really is just a person coping with a really rough and often unfair world by trying to create some kind of universality, right? Whether that's right or wrong. And clearly at the end, it doesn't seem to matter and or have helped him survive. It might have helped him actually live more. And I think that's something we can all... I mean, it's ultimately so relatable. And Forrest Whitaker is just, again, the most interesting canvas. I could just watch him walk around and survey people. It reminds me of that, what was that old Einstein experiment, where it's just the man staring at the camera with a blank face. And then they would show a house burning or a child laughing, and whatever the other frame was would paint how you saw his face. And I was watching, I was like, oh my God, that's kind of what I feel with Forrest, is he's giving me so many emotions. It's such rapid succession. I don't know. Beautiful. It's a fucking beautiful movie, guys. It is on Criterion Channel right now. This is one you should probably just buy and own. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. That's enough for Ghost Dog. We'll be back Thursday with our Month of Amour movies. Please take a second, leave us a rating and review. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Film Alchemist. Email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Find us on all the social media sites that you're on. We love to hear from you. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I am Alex Dandino.